Okay, hi, and welcome back to the second part of morphology. Okay, so we have already defined what morphology is, we have already defined what morphemes are, and I hope you have understood that. Okay, now we have to go on and classify morphemes. Now, don't get afraid. Okay, I know that after studying consonants and after studying vowels, you are almost afraid of the word classification, but don't worry, this is nothing like that. This is much simpler. Okay, so morphemes can be classified basically into based on three types. Okay, we can distinguish between three types of classification criteria that we have for morphemes. First one is lexical and grammatical morphemes. Second one, free and bound morphemes, and last one is roots and affixes. Okay, so let's begin with lexical and grammatical morphemes. Okay, so what are lexical and grammatical? I'm sure if you are familiar with these words. Okay, now those morphemes which have sorry, 1 second. Sorry about that, I got a call. All right, so the first category that we have are lexical and grammatical. Okay, now lexical morphemes are those which are more or less independent. Okay, in the sense that lexical words means those that are content words, they have meaning on their own. Okay, and they can exist in isolation, they can be meaningful. Okay, those kind of morphemes are called lexical morphemes. Now when I gave you the examples of some morphemes, you must have wondered, some morphemes we have defined morphemes as having meaning, right? We said that it is the smallest meaningful unit of language, but then some affixes like un and full and all of those, they do not seem to have meaning on their own. That is why we need to classify them. Okay, so the first category is lexical morphemes wherein you have meaning. Okay, for example, in the word unhappy, happy will be a lexical morpheme because happy is a word that has a meaning on its own, it can exist on its own. Okay, so all your nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs are usually called as content words. Okay, and these are the lexical morphemes that we have. Okay, the next category are grammatical morphemes, and they are actually very significant. Okay, unlike content words, they do not have meaning on their own, but they are very significant because they include these words like articles, prepositions, conjunctions, without which we cannot actually form sentences. Okay, and they are actually called as function type words. Okay, we'll come to these word classes in the next unit, but this is what they are. Okay, the words that have meaning on their own are called lexical or content words, and the ones which do not have meaning, that have a purely grammatical function in a sentence, are called as functional or grammatical morphemes. Okay, so the sir, s in boys, okay, or the ed form in laughed, played, all of that will become a grammatical morpheme. But this word like boy will become a lexical morpheme. Okay, so that is the first classification of morphemes. The second one is into free and bound morphemes. Okay, what are free and bound morphemes? Free morphemes are those which can exist independently, much like your lexical morphemes. They can exist independently in words, or they might also exist in combination with other morphemes. Okay, they stand alone as independent words in a sentence, and they are free. They do not need another morpheme to come and give them meaning. They have a meaning in themselves. Okay, so your words like laugh, man, tree, cut, play, all those words which are independent, which can exist alone, are called as free morphemes. Okay, now what are then bound morphemes? Bound means what? Tied together, right? So bound morphemes, on the other hand, are not independent. They cannot exist alone. Okay, they have to be attached to other morphemes in order to exist, in order to have meaning. Okay, and in isolation, they do not make sense. And these are your words like ed, ing forms, your plural s forms. Okay, as in like when I say the word playing, okay, I can break it down into two, that is play and ing. Okay, now play is a free morpheme. Why? Because it can exist on its own. But ing is a bound morpheme. Why? Because It does not have meaning on its own. It cannot stand alone in a sentence, or it is not a word which has complete meaning. It has to be attached to a verb like this to get some sort of meaning. So all of these words which are added to your root words are actually called as bound morphemes. They cannot exist alone. Okay. The next category are roots and affixes. Okay, roots. All of these might seem similar to each other because they are. Okay, so don't get confused. Roots and affixes. Now, morphemes in any language can be classified into roots and affixes. The root or the base is the core or the nucleus of the word. Okay, like when you divided playing, I got the word play. So that will be the root of the word. Okay, it carries the load of the entire word. But, I'll give you the example of the word unhappy. Okay, here I have un plus happy. Here, happy is the root word, okay, because it has meaning, it is the core, it is the nucleus, and un is an affix. Now, what is an affix? Okay, so that comes our issue. Affixes are actually of three types. Okay, you have prefixes, you have infixes, and you have suffixes. I'm sure you have studied this at some point. Okay, now what happens is that in prefix, it's like here. Okay, when you add something in the front or at the beginning of a word, it becomes a prefix and it adds meaning or it changes the meaning of the word. Okay, suffix is when you add something after this. For example, if it is unhappy and I add ly, unhappily, okay, what happens? That is a suffix. It is added at the end of the word and it is changing the meaning or increasing the meaning or any of those. Okay, the third category, infix, is something that we do not have in English. Okay, in English we do not have any infixes, but what they mean is that something is added in between the word. Okay, you break the word into two, a single word is broken into two and something is added in between. I think some African languages have infixes, okay, but in Indian and English, we do not have infixes. Okay, so in general, obviously, affixes are subsidiary to roots. The root are the main, they are the gods. Okay, and they are the center of the construction of words. All right. Now, if you look at words like unkindly, another example to explain this, unkindly. Okay, which is the root here? Yes, this kind is the root. Un and li are both affixes. Un is a prefix and li is a suffix. Okay, so this is how we classify morphemes. Okay, into based on what? Lexical and grammatical, free and bound, and roots and affixes. Okay, now here's one more thing that you need to learn is this word called a stem. Okay, and it comes with roots and affixes, something called a stem. Now, the form to which an affix is attached is called a stem. Okay, thus, in the word like unkind, okay, kind is the root, but it is also called the stem because this is the stem to which this word un is, this morpheme un is attached. Okay, and it is sometimes, it is very, mostly it is always the root word that is there. Okay, and sometimes if there is already some other affix there, and sometimes in your word there might be an affix already. For example, if I tell you unkind is the word that I'm giving you, okay, and you have to add a prefix li, so this will become your stem. Why? Because in this case there is already a addition happening, there is already a prefix there, and to this you are adding another suffix. Okay, but that is not always the case. It can be a root word also. Okay, so just remember, don't get confused. The part or the word to which an affix is attached is called as the stem. Okay, and in some cases it might be the root only. In some cases like this, there might be some addition that is already there. All right, so that is something that I wanted to discuss. Okay, now there is another confusion that you might get in a word like friendship. Okay, friendship. Now, if you look at this word and you break it into morphemes, you'll get two morphemes, friend and ship. And you might tell me that which is the affix here, because both of them have meaning seemingly. Friend is a word which has meaning, ship is a word that has meaning, okay? But in cases like this, it is this word ship, it is this morpheme ship, which becomes an affix. Why? Because even though ship has a meaning on its own, it is a mode of transportation, but it has nothing to do with this word friend, does it? In context, if you look at meaning in context, that meaning of this particular morpheme has nothing to do with the context of this word, and that is why this becomes meaningless. It becomes an affix. All right, so that is another doubt that I wanted to clear with you all. All right, and another very, very small thing that we need to discuss in terms of morphemes is within affixes, we have two categories. Okay, within affixes, when we study affixes, there are two categories, and they are derivational or inflectional. Okay, they are derivational or inflectional. Now, what are they? Okay, they might, all affixes may be inflectional or derivational. Okay, affixes that are used to derive words, that means they change the word from one type to another, are called as derivational affixes. Okay, and those which are used to inflect words, or that those which have purely only grammatical functions, are called as inflectional affixes. Okay, so what are they? Let's look at them carefully. Okay, so what happens is that inflectional affixes are affixes which only change the form of a word. Okay, that means something, when you add something called ing, play plus ing, it is still a verb, right? Playing is still a verb. So this is an inflectional affix. Why? Because it is not changing the class. What is word class? Noun, verbs, pronouns, all those are called as word class. Okay, so in inflectional affixes, the class of the word does not change, only its form changes. Okay, so it is remaining a verb. Okay, but in examples such as for example, when you add, okay, look at this, work is a word. When I add er, okay, work is a verb, but when I add this affix er, this word becomes worker. And what is a worker? It is a noun. All right, so the kind of affixes which change the class of the morphemes or of the words are called as derivational affixes. Why? Because they are changing the class from verb, it becomes noun. Okay, another example is teacher, teaching. Okay, all those are words where the change, there is a change in the class of words, so those are derivational and inflectional affixes. Okay, so I hope this was clear. I will send you detailed notes about this part and it will become easier for you to understand with my and I want you to, after listening to this video, please try and find out more examples for each of these. Okay, the morphology is very easy. This is all that we need to study in morphology as of now. So please make sure that you understand this and you are able to clarify any doubts, if any, during our next session. Okay, thank you.